Welcome to Journal Entries. I'm Samantha Hawley, and I work with successful women in business and leadership who are making six figures and tired of their work stress bleeding into their home life. I specialize in the ripple effect, helping you regulate your nervous system so that you can be focused and fulfilled in your career and patient and present at home. If you're ready to leave work at work and choose presence over performance, you are in the right place. Hello, welcome to today's journal entry. I'm smiling right now because we are going deep today, deep into one of my own journal entries. You may have heard of the term mother wound, but have you ever heard of sister wound? That's what I journaled on recently, and I really went there. So that's what we're talking about today, because it was so interesting for me to learn about and then to actually apply it to my own past and how it's showing up for me currently. And it's interesting because initially, when I described to you what a sister wound is, if you've never heard of it, I initially was like, oh no, I do not have any sister wounds. But then once I started thinking about it, as you are about to hear, I 100% do. So just stick with me. And I'm so curious to hear if this shows up for you. So a sister wound, this is what happens when something hurtful happens between you and another woman or girl, if you're like me. Often this happens when you are young, right? So it's between another friend, maybe your actual sister, a classmate, even a colleague. And part of you learns that closeness with another woman isn't fully safe for one reason or another. And the tricky part is that lesson that you learned doesn't just stay in childhood. It ripples into other areas of your life beyond childhood, right? It follows us into our businesses, into leadership, into decisions, into friendships, and even into motherhood and like what we're teaching our kids. I was listening to a podcast that explained this whole theory of sister wounds, and it was like this immediate flash as to what my sister wound was. Because again, I feel like I have heard this term or I've heard the definition, and I always almost felt bad of like, oh, wow, I'm so sorry that person experienced something like that. But whatever it was, when this one podcast was explaining it, I was like, oh yeah, I've definitely experienced that. And so since this is journal entries, of course, I'm going to get vulnerable with you and share what I journaled on so that you can reflect on what your wound might be and how it's impacting you and also how we can actually work through it. Before diving into my personal story, let's first normalize the different ways that a sister wound might show up, because it's not always about my story and what I'm going to share, which is collaboration. So for you, maybe you hold back from networking, which I've talked a lot about in past episodes, or like joining a mastermind because you feel like everyone else is already more successful and you don't want to be the quote unquote newbie. Or maybe you overwork or overgive and stay at the office until 10 p.m. or check emails at home until 10 p.m. because you don't trust that your quiet confidence is enough to earn your respect. I earned an award once in college. What was it called? It was like that quiet confidence, but it's like the unsung hero. That's what it was, the unsung hero. But it was all about that quiet confidence. Like I was never the loud leader. I was this like quiet cheerleader. In fact, it was for the cheerleading team. So maybe you're like that. Or maybe as a mom, you scroll Instagram and you compare yourself to other moms and other women and feel that subtle sense of not measuring up. Or maybe you avoid deep friendships with other women altogether because competition or betrayal, which is also a little bit of my story, feels too risky. So for me, this realization of the sister wound hit while I was thinking about potential guests for this podcast, for journal entries. And I was realizing that my fear of being replaced or outshined was quietly and is, well, not now because I've worked through it, but right up until now was quietly steering who I invited on to be my guest. But the root of the pattern went all the way back to senior year of high school. So my senior year, I would say that I had a core group of like three best girlfriends, one being my twin sister and then two other girls, plus like two guy friends, best guy friends, right? And then toward the middle to end of the year, it was kind of like the end of an era energy, like, senior year, and the group became much bigger. There was maybe like 7 girls and 4 guys that all hang out together. We would, I don't know, we'd do everything together all of the time after school, on the weekends. But after a while, as you can assume, there was more and more drama between the girls. And those extra girls that came into the picture, they kind of took the guys and all but 2 of the girls away from us. And so if you don't count my twin, it just felt like it was me and one other girlfriend. And everybody else was just kind of hanging out more so on their own. So going back to the sister wound, it felt like I allowed these new girls to come in and get close to me. And then they ended up taking my best friends away from me. And not only that, but 1 month later or so, one of those friends who I actually was close with, she was one of my best friends that I counted in the initial 3. She took my recently broken up with high school sweetheart that I dated for 3 years to prom. So once again, I learned that it wasn't safe to let people get close to you because things would get taken away from you. What you wanted was going to be taken, basically. And so maybe I had an easier time connecting the dots between those experiences and my podcast because I was also thinking about podcast guests at the time that I was listening to the podcast. But I realized that the guests that I've had on my show, while they are incredible, and I truly have enjoyed all of our conversations, they are a little random. Like I recently have had a grief coach on, which again, I think that was a very powerful conversation, and grief is such an important conversation to have. I've also had a speaker on toxic relationships. Again, important conversation to have. I've had a guest on manifesting. And so all great and interesting. But if my goal is to truly help the woman who is stressed at work, and my goal is to help her become less stressed, less overwhelmed, so that she can be more fulfilled in her career and love what she does, and then ripple into coming home and being more patient, more present, not short-tempered, and feeling connected with her family, I should probably, and I actually do want to have more guests that talk about things like stress reduction, nervous system regulation, maybe career pivots or decisions within your career and relationships. And since those are all things that I talk about in my coaching programs and with my private clients, that means bringing on women to talk about things that I coach on. So this sister wound has been preventing me from bringing on quality guests that would actually help you as the listener tremendously, all because of my fear that my audience will leave me for them, that they'll want to work with them instead of me. And I don't want to do that to you or to this podcast or, quite frankly, to myself anymore, because I love collaborating and I'm ready to start collaborating with the right women who will elevate this podcast and elevate you. Like when I do visualizations or guided meditations, and I think of my ripple effect with the work that I do, I truly visualize helping not just the woman, but her family. I picture families based on the growth and the identity work that the women I work with are transforming into, like they're glow ups essentially. And it's so powerful. And you'll hear that in a second when I talk about some journal prompts for you. So your story, again, might not look exactly like mine, especially if you don't have a podcast. So maybe your sister wound started when you were excluded from a friend group like mine, or when your colleague took credit for your work, or maybe when another mom judged you for your parenting choices. It can come truly from so many different sources. The details don't matter as much as the message that your younger self received. And in fact, the same situation can happen to two different people, and you both received a different message. However, the core message typically is something around the lines that it's not safe to be fully seen among women who are similar to you. And that message might still be shaping how you show up today, how you make decisions today, who you are today. But it takes more than just awareness and claiming that you want something different to start making that shift and actually change it. And so obviously my solution is to strategically journal, not just gratitude journal, right? Not jump to, oh, but I'm so grateful for my friends. I'm so grateful for the people who I have had on my podcast. No, I want to strategically journal, get to the root of it all. And at first, I even asked ChatGPT for journal prompts, and it gave me the kind of surface level prompts that we've all heard before. Like, what part of me still believes this? What news story do I want to believe? And I thought, no wonder so many women get stuck here, because that skips so much. In fact, the prompts follow so much. The ChatGPT prompts, and even think Pinterest prompts, those follow so much of what ambitious women already do without needing to journal. I often hear from ambitious women that they don't journal because they don't have time. And when they have in the past, they don't get anything out of it. And I don't blame you, because ambitious women on their own, we can create awareness of the situation. We know what's going on. And then we follow it with problem solving and creating a new belief. Like, we go from, okay, here's the situation and here's what I'm going to do to fix it. But here's what they don't do. They skip the emotional route in between that is needed to change your nervous system response to a belief. And so that's why ChatGPT prompts did not work for me in this situation, or Pinterest prompts. And so I used my Calm Mind Blueprint formula, which that is my free 5 prompts to go from overthinking to clarity and clear direction. I'll link the blueprint in my show notes for you to save, and you can do another time. But I mixed that formula with some deeper prompts for this specific scenario. And I'm going to share these prompts in the show notes as well, because there's a lot. There's 3 different sections. And then, since today I'm just going to be sharing them with you with some side notes, we're actually going to do some journaling on them on the Thursday episode, since Thursdays are the actual journaling episodes. So come back on Thursday if you are loving this episode so far and want to carve out some more time to actually process this with me in a couple days. Also, save this episode to come back to the prompts, because again, they are juicy. They're going to help you go from, oh my gosh, this is my sister wound, to feeling so validated and light and free and ready to move on. Okay, so there are 3 different sections of prompts because I really wanted to get to the root, like I said, and to release the belief. It's been driving my decisions and friendships and business for so long, like literally since high school, maybe even middle school, but we won't go there right now. So the first section is about identifying the loop. And with this section, we're doing free writing. What that is basically I'm going to give you some prompts and you can just write, no censoring. And again, today we're not actually writing. I'm just going to be talking you through them, and they're going to be in the show notes so you can screenshot them. So the first prompt is, when I imagine being around other successful women in my field, I feel blank because it reminds me of blank. The second prompt, the thought that flashes through my mind in that moment is, prompt 3, that thought feels true because it's protecting me from feeling blank or from experiencing blank again. Once you answer all of those or just think through all of those, reread them or reflect on them, because this exposes the emotional logic that your younger self created to stay safe. It's those rules that your brain wrote to protect your heart, to keep you safe, to make you feel good. My own recap from the prompts from my variation that I did, because I used this specifically around collaboration and like being seen with other women. is I wrote, or not wrote, but my recap was I like being part of a group, but I'm not enough if I'm the same as them. And I need to make every moment worth it, or else it's a waste of time. And then I wrote, logically, I know that's not true. Like, of course, speaking on that stage with other women isn't failing. And it was worth it simply to get experience with speaking, to maybe visit that new city that the event was in, to connect with new or existing women. But if I'm not advancing my own personal life, I suppose financially, I feel like I should have invested that same time in doing a different event or a different opportunity. So, kind of crazy how it went from that feeling of like belonging to something financial and like different opportunities. The second set of prompts is where we're going to that dialogue with your younger self. It's kind of like inner child healing. I mean, in fact, it is inner child healing. So imagine the version of you who first felt unsafe around other women, maybe in high school, maybe later as an adult. But this version of you doesn't need logic. I feel like so often in my coaching sessions, women say, like, logically, I know this, or I should be grateful for this or something. But this version of you needs acknowledgement. So this is the section where you're not trying to fix your younger self or even logically understand the situation that happened. The goal is that you're repairing trust with that younger version of you. So the prompts. First is, you felt blank when they blank. That makes sense because blank. So just as an example for this first one, I wrote, and I actually changed it to but I felt alone when they took my friends. That makes sense because I got to spend less time with my best friends. The next prompt, back then, losing connection felt like losing blank. The next prompt, what did you most need to hear or feel in that moment that you didn't get? Next prompt, if I could sit with you now, what would I want you to know about safety, belonging, and worth? This was honestly my favorite section. It felt so validating, and I got the most healing from this section. So take your time with it. In fact, it didn't even take that much time until the very end. That last one about sitting with you and what you need to know about safety, belonging, and worth. And even add in trust there. Trust was what came up for me of like, you trusted yourself. And when you trust yourself, everything kind of falls into place. Okay. And now our final section. This is section 3, where we are identifying the transfer of how all of that is now showing up currently in our current day, current world, current decisions, and all of that. And so we're connecting that emotional template, if you will, that our younger self created to what we're going through now. Prompt number 1, when I avoid blank, so this could be when I avoid delegating, collaborating, being visible, promoting my offers, trusting my team. When I avoid that, I'm protecting myself from feeling blank. Prompt 2, the part of me that hesitates is afraid that blank will happen again just like before. Prompt 3, but in my adult life, what would actually happen if I trusted myself and others more? And the last prompt, what new possibilities might open up if I believed that my presence is enough? And finally, you could complete the thought, I used to believe that belonging required proving, but now I'm remembering that belonging means blank. And that's the moment that your nervous system begins to rewire, when your adult self teaches your younger self a new definition of safety and it actually feels it. So that was a lot, which is why it's all in the show notes. If any one of those prompts kind of pinged your gut or you already started to answer it, I would take that as a cue to answer that one first. You don't need to do this in order. I would answer that one today and see what comes up and go down the rabbit hole. If your brain starts to spiral, I always say, go there, follow that. if any part of you feels like connection with other women still comes with a cost, I want you to know that you can reteach your body what safety feels like. And that is the work that I just did and am currently doing. I think that this is going to take more time because the next step is continuously proving to ourselves what that feels like and giving ourselves more experiences where we put ourselves in situations where we trust other women and see what happens and see like, whoa, they actually didn't let me down. In fact, my circle expanded and this amazing opportunity happened from it, and, see that positive ripple effect from it. After journaling, my whole mindset and world and I don't know, everything feels like it's just shifted. And I'm just so excited to continue to build connection without that fear of competition, which I've realized I've been doing for so long, feeling like I'm belonging without proving myself and feeling successful without feeling alone and isolated. And I'm going to be giving all of this to you guys too. I'm going to be bringing on guests to help you with all of this and so much more that will help you feel fulfilled in your career and in motherhood. And I'm just so excited about this. So thanks for tuning into my actual journal entry today. Again, I'll put all of the prompts in the show notes, and on Thursday's episode, we will actually journal through some of them together, ending with a somatic release that will feel so good. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you on Thursday. Thanks for joining me for today's journal entry. If something resonated with you, I'd love to know about it. Screenshot this episode, share it on social media, and tag me at samantha.s.says. Or even leave a review, which will help more women find this podcast to create more fulfillment in their career and as a mom. And hey, if you're thinking, I wish I could get more of this, I've got you covered. Click on the link in the show notes, which I customize each week based on what we're talking about. And I always include the link to the Calm Mind Blueprint, which are my 5 journal prompts to go from overwhelm to inner peace in 2 to 10 minutes a day. Subscribe so that you catch my Thursday 5-minute journal with me episodes and next week's full episode where we will continue this journey together. I'll see you then.